The sound of a snapping finger is distinctive. It is a sharp, percussive demand that cuts through the hum of server fans and the murmur of six-figure deals being negotiated over lukewarm, sparkling water. When it happens within 3 inches of your ear, it is not just a sound, it is a declaration of war. Hey, IT guy, Earth to IT guy. I did not look up immediately. I was currently staring at a complex schematic for a Phase 3 fiber optic route that was supposed to ensure the 37th floor did not melt down during the upcoming summer heat wave. My finger was tracing the line where the redundant cooling loop intersected with the primary server annex. It was a delicate ecosystem of power and glass, one that I had personally designed, negotiated, and leased to this firm 3 years ago. The fingers snapped again, faster this time, like a metronome for an idiot. "I know you can hear me," the voice drawled. It was Julian. Of course it was Julian. Julian Thorne was 26, wore a fleece vest that cost more than my first car, and had the job title of Director of Visionary Operations, which as far as I could tell meant his uncle was the vice president of the holding company. I finally turned my swivel chair. "Can I help you, Julian?" "The Wi-Fi," he said, gesturing wildly at the glass-walled conference room behind him, where 5 other guys in identical fleece vests were staring at a frozen Zoom screen. "It is lagging. We are pitching the Series B guys in 3 minutes. Fix it." I took a slow breath. I am a 55-year-old man in a tailored suit. I do not wear a badge lanyard. I do not have a walkie-talkie clipped to my belt. I was sitting at the conference table because the light was better for reading blueprints, not because I was waiting for a help desk ticket. "I am not IT, Julian," I said, my voice level. "I am Arthur Hale. I am reviewing the infrastructure specs for the renewal. If you are having latency issues, you need to submit a ticket to the portal." Julian laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "Excuse me, I do not submit tickets. I tell people to do their jobs. You are sitting here with a laptop, are you not? Fix the router. Reboot the whatever. Just make the internet work." "I am busy," I said, turning back to the schematic. "And I do not have admin access to your local network." That was the wrong thing to say, or perhaps the perfect thing. Julian slammed his hand down on the table, rattling my coffee cup. The entire open plan office went silent. The marketing team lowered their phones. The developers stopped typing. "You know what?" Julian shouted, his face flushing a blotchy red. "I am sick of the attitude from the support staff in this building. My uncle pays a fortune for this lease. I cannot even get a stable connection. You are useless. You are actually useless." He pointed a finger at the door. "Get out. You are fired. I do not want to see you on this floor again. I will have HR send your final check. Go." I froze, not out of fear, but out of sheer scientific fascination. He was firing me. He actually thought he had the authority to fire me. I looked at him. I looked at the silent office watching us. I looked at the folder under my hand, the one containing the Infrastructure Reliance Agreement addendum that was the only reason his Visionary Operations Center had power redundancy. "You are firing me," I asked, "just to have it on the record." "I am firing you," Julian spat. "Get your things and get out now." I stood up. I did not argue. I did not explain that I was not an employee of Apex Solutions, but rather the owner of Hale Infrastructure Holdings and the independent infrastructure overseer for the entire Skyline Tower. I did not mention that the IT guy he just screamed at held the master key to the building's neural network. I simply closed my laptop. I capped my pen. I picked up my leather folio, leaving the unsigned renewal contract sitting in the center of the mahogany table. "Understood," I said calmly. "Good luck with the Series B pitch, Julian." I walked to the elevator. I could feel 60 pairs of eyes on my back. I did not rush. I pressed the button, waited for the chime, and stepped inside. As the doors closed, I saw Julian smugly high-fiving one of his vest buddies, thinking he had just asserted dominance. He had not asserted dominance. He had just severed the artery keeping his business alive. He just did not know it yet. The elevator ride down to the lobby was smooth. Skyline Tower prides itself on its elevators. High speed, whisper quiet, serviced weekly. I know they are serviced weekly because my company signs the vendor invoices. I stepped out into the lobby, the cool air conditioning hitting my face, and nodded to the security chief, Gavin, who was monitoring the camera bank. Gavin is 59, a retired officer who has worked in this tower since the concrete was poured. "Afternoon, Mr. Hale," Gavin grunted. "Everything good on 37? "Not anymore." "Gavin," I said, offering a tight smile. Not anymore. 10 minutes later, exactly enough time for me to walk to the coffee shop across the street, order a double espresso, and sit by the window. The chaos started upstairs. I was not there to see it, but I did not need to be. I knew the script. I had written the stage directions. Up on the 37th floor, Harvey, the building manager, walked out of the service elevator. Harvey is a good man. He is 62, wears suits that are slightly too large for him, and sweats profusely when things go off script. He was carrying a notary stamp and a bottle of champagne. He was there to celebrate the signing of the 10-year lease extension, a deal I had spent 6 months negotiating with the VP, Donald Thorne, Julian's uncle. Harvey walked into the glass-walled conference room. He saw the folder I had left on the table. He saw Julian and his team, still high on adrenaline and low on situational awareness. "Afternoon, gentlemen," Harvey boomed, trying to be jovial. "Where is he? Where is our man of the hour?" "We have got ink to dry." Julian spun around, looking annoyed. "Who?" "Arthur Hale," Harvey said, looking around the room. "He said he was setting up in here. We need to finalize the infrastructure rider before 5 p.m. or the grandfather clause on your cooling unit expires." Julian scoffed, grabbing an energy drink from the mini-fridge. "Oh, him. The old guy with the attitude. Yeah, I fired him." The room stopped. It was not a quiet stop. It was the kind of stop where the air gets sucked out of the room. The developers in the back row lowered their headphones. The HR director, a woman named Sarah, who actually knew who I was, but had been in the break room during the incident, walked in just in time to hear this. Her face went the color of bleached paper. Harvey blinked. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "I am sorry, Julian. You did what?" "I fired him," Julian said slower, as if he was talking to a child. "He was incompetent. Couldn't fix the Wi-Fi. Gave me lip, so I told him to pack up and get out." "You are welcome, by the way." "We need better vendors." Harvey stared at him. He stared at the empty chair where I had been sitting. He stared at the unsigned contract on the table. "Julian," Harvey said, his voice trembling slightly, "Arthur Hale is not a vendor. He is not a T." Julian shrugged. "Arthur is the landlord," Harvey whispered. "Well, technically, he is the independent infrastructure overseer and leaseholder for the commercial zones," Harvey said, his volume rising as the panic set in. "He owns the rights to the fiber trunk you use. He owns the lease on the backup generators. He holds the master agreement for this entire floor. I just manage the janitors." "Julian, he decides if this building has a pulse." Julian laughed nervously. "You were joking." He was looking at a laptop. "He was rewriting your lease," Harvey yelled. "You just fired the person who was about to save you $2 million in retroactive utility fees." Julian's smile faltered. He looked at the folder on the table. He reached out and flipped it open. There on the first page, in bold Arial font, was Infrastructure Reliance Agreement, prepared by Arthur Hale, Managing Partner, Hale Infrastructure Holdings. Julian said, a small, weak sound. "He walked out?" Harvey asked, grabbing the table for support. "Did he say anything?" He said, "Understood." Julian mumbled. Harvey closed his eyes. "Oh, God!" He accepted the termination of the negotiation. "Julian, you did not fire an employee. You just terminated your own service contract." Down on the street level, I watched my phone. A text came through from Harvey. "Please tell me he did not." I took a sip of my espresso. I did not reply. The door had closed. Now I was going to lock it. My office is not on the 37th floor. It is on the 4th floor, tucked behind the mechanical rooms and the freight elevator banks. It does not have a view of the city skyline. It has a view of the backup diesel generators and the massive cooling towers that hum with a low, rumbling vibration I find incredibly soothing. This is the brain of the building. The glass suites upstairs are just the decoration. I unlocked the heavy steel door and stepped inside. It was cool, quiet, and smelled faintly of ozone and expensive paper. I sat down at my desk, a sprawling slab of oak covered in monitors, and woke up my workstation. I did not feel angry. I really did not. Anger is inefficient. Anger is messy. What I felt was a profound sense of obligation to the terms of the contract. Julian Thorne had been very clear. He did not want me there. He did not want my services. As a professional, I was bound to respect his wishes. I pulled the Apex Solutions binder from the shelf. It was 3 inches thick. I opened it to Section 14B. Revocable privileges and shared utilities. Most tenants assume that when they rent a floor, they get everything. Water, power, internet, air. But Skyline Tower is an old building retrofitted for modern tech. The The base lease covers 4 walls and a ceiling. Everything else, the high-speed fiber, the dedicated HVAC loop for the server room, biometric security access. Those are add-on amenities, essentially subleased to the building management to offer to tenants. Julian had just fired the provider of those amenities. I opened the building management software. My access level is root administrator. Step 1, the elevator priority protocol. Apex Solutions paid a premium for VIP lift access. It meant that when a keycard assigned to their floor swiped in the lobby, one of the 6 elevators would immediately prioritize their call. It shaved about 4 minutes off the morning commute. I found the clause. Contract status negotiation terminated by tenant. I clicked the checkbox, revert to standard access. Now, they were just like the call center on the 8th floor. They would wait in line, steeper 2, the freight elevator. They had a shipment of new servers arriving on Tuesday. I knew this because I had approved the dock schedule. However, access to the heavy-duty freight elevator requires a digital token issued by the infrastructure overseer. I revoked the token. When that truck arrived, they would have to carry those racks up the fire stairs. All 37 flights, steep 3. The climate control. This was the big one. The building's central AC keeps the offices at a comfortable 72 degrees. But a server room generates massive heat. It needs a dedicated chilled water loop to keep the equipment from frying. That loop is my property. I pulled up the HVAC schematic. The flow to suite 3700 was currently set to high priority subsidized. I typed in a new command, set to base building standard. The valve actuators on the roof would take about 1 hour to close. By tomorrow morning, their server room would be a sauna. I was not breaking the law. I was not sabotaging them. I was simply removing the services they had explicitly stated they no longer wanted from the IT guy. My phone rang. It was the landline. Only 3 people had this number: the building owner, the fire marshal, and the head of legal for the property management firm. It was the legal counsel, Eleanor, Arthur. Eleanor's voice was tight. I just got a frantic call from Harvey. He says the VP's nephew fired you. He did, I said, putting the call on speaker while I navigated to the security badge database. Publicly, with witnesses. He terminated our working relationship. Jesus, Eleanor sighed. Okay, what are you doing? I am adhering to the termination, I said. I am rolling back the uncontracted amenities. I cannot provide services without a signed liability waiver. Eleanor, you know the insurance rules. If his servers melt and I do not have a contract, I get sued. I know, Eleanor said. I am not asking you to stop. I am asking, how bad is it going to get? I looked at the monitor. I was hovering over the biometric bathroom locks tab. Well, I said, I hope they like using the public restrooms in the lobby. Understood, Eleanor said. I will draft the liability deflection. Have a good evening, Arthur. You too, Eleanor. I pressed execute. The beauty of infrastructure is its invisibility. When it works, you do not know it exists. You walk through a door, it opens. You breathe air, it is cool. You flush a toilet, it works. You assume these are natural laws of the universe, not services rendered by a contract. On the 37th floor, the laws of physics were changing. It started small. Around 3:30 p.m., the smart glass in the executive conference room, the stuff that frosts over for privacy at the touch of a button, stopped responding. It reverted to its default state. Transparent. Julian was in the middle of a private yelling match with his logistics coordinator. And suddenly the entire office could see him pacing and gesticulating like a mime in a glass box. I watched it on the security feed. It was like silent theater. Then came the biometric locks. The interior doors of their suite, separating the developer bullpen from the executive wing, were secured by fingerprint scanners. Those scanners routed through my local server. I disabled the account. The doors did not lock permanently. That would be a fire hazard. Instead, they failed safe. They popped open and refused to latch. Suddenly, the exclusive executive wing was open to everyone. The junior interns wandered in looking confused. The noise from the sales floor, the ringing phones, the chatter, flooded into Julian's sanctuary. But the real panic set in at 4:15 p.m. I have a dashboard that monitors tenant tickets. Usually, these go to the building management, but because the infrastructure is mine, I get a CC on anything tagged critical. Ticket 942, server room temp alert. Current temp 78 degrees, rising. Ticket 943, bathroom access denied. Executive washroom keycards not working. ticket 944, internet flickering, packet loss 40%. Julian had called me the IT guy. He did not understand what IT actually ran on. The fiber trunk they used was a split line. Without my prioritization code, their massive data packets were now fighting for bandwidth with the dental call center on the 8th floor. The dentists were downloading massive X-ray files. Apex Solutions video calls started looking like 8-bit Minecraft art. I sat in my office sipping sparkling water, watching the temperature gauge for suite 3700 climb. 79 degrees, 80 degrees, my email pinged. It was from Julian's subject. Glitch, Bilby. Hey, the AC is acting up and the doors are weird. Can you take a look? Need it fixed ASAP. No apology. No, I am sorry I fired you, just a demand. He still thought I was the help desk. He still thought he had the power. I did not reply. I simply archived the email into a folder labeled Evidence of Unauthorized Service Requests. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. It was Harvey again. Arthur, he is screaming in the lobby, Harvey whispered, his voice tense. He says the building is attacking him. He is trying to get the maintenance guy, old Bill, to hack the thermostat. Bill cannot hack the thermostat, I said calmly. It is encrypted with a 256-bit key. It is hardwired into the lease logic controller. I know that, Harvey said, but Julian does not. He is threatening to sue the building for breach of habitable workspace. Let him. The lease guarantees a temperature of 74 degrees for standard office space. It does not guarantee cooling for a high-density server farm. That was an addendum, the one he did not sign. He is asking for you, Harvey said. He is asking where the hell the IT guy went. Tell him I have been terminated, I said. Tell him that as a non-employee, I am not authorized to enter the premises. He is going to call his uncle, Harvey warned. I am counting on it, I said by 5 p.m. It was 82 degrees in the server room. The automated safety protocols kicked in. The servers began to throttle their CPU speed to prevent overheating. The Series B pitch deck they were trying to upload to their venture capitalists was now moving at the speed of a 1998 dial-up connection. I checked the freight elevator camera. A delivery guy was standing there with 10 boxes of pizza for the team working late. He swiped his card. Red light. He swiped again. Red light. He shrugged, turned around and left the pizzas with Gavin at the front desk. Julian's team was going to be hungry, hot, and stuck in a room with open doors and slow internet. The chain reaction had begun. While Julian was sweating through his fleece vest upstairs, I was straightening my blazer. I had a lunch meeting scheduled for the next day with Howard Briggs, the CEO of Quantum Systems, but I decided to move it up to dinner. Quantum Systems was Apex Solutions' direct competitor. They were a solid, unpretentious company that had been trying to get a foothold in Skyline Tower for 2 years. They were currently crammed into a sublet on the 12th floor, desperate for more bandwidth and better cooling for their own expansion. Donald Thorne had outbid them for the 37th floor 3 years ago. I walked across the street to the Capitol Grill. It is the kind of place where the steak is dry-aged for weeks and the waiters know your name. Howard Briggs stood up when I arrived. He was 56, silver-haired, and impeccably polite. Arthur, he said, shaking my hand. I did not expect to hear from you so soon. Is everything all right with the infrastructure renewals? Everything is changing, Howard, I said, sliding into the booth. I placed a thin folder on the table. I ordered a Pinot Noir. Howard waited, his eyes on the folder. I have a unique situation, I began. A block of high-priority infrastructure capacity has just become available. Immediate availability. Redundant fiber loop, dedicated chilled water cooling, and VIP elevator priority. Howard raised an eyebrow. I thought Apex Solutions had that locked down for another 5 years. The renewal was a formality, was it not? The renewal was rejected, I said, choosing my words carefully. Their tenant representative terminated the negotiation and the service provider relationship, effective immediately. Howard stared at me. He was a smart man. He did not ask for the gossip. He looked at the opportunity. How much capacity? Enough to run your new AI division, I said. And since the physical infrastructure is already routed to the riser, I can divert the bandwidth to your floor in, about 10 minutes. And the cost? Standard market rate, I said. Plus a signing bonus for the expedited service and a 5-year commitment, Howard smiled. It was the smile of a predator who just found a wounded gazelle. Arthur, if you can get me that bandwidth by tomorrow morning, I will sign the 5-year deal tonight. My CTO has been screaming for more fiber. I have the contract right here, I said, tapping the folder. And I can have the bandwidth rerouted by the time we finish our stakes. We spent the next hour reviewing the clauses. Howard did not snap his fingers. He did not call me the IT guy. He asked intelligent questions about latency guarantees and power load balancing. He treated me like what I was, the landlord of the invisible world. As I signed the counter-signature, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the building system. ALT, Tenant 3700 Apex Solutions, attempting unauthorized access to breaker panel 4. Julian was getting desperate. He was trying to physically reset the breakers, thinking it was a fuse issue. Is everything okay? Howard asked, seeing me check my phone. Just a minor glitch in the old system, I said, putting the phone away. So, Howard, about the freight elevator. I have a slot opening up on Tuesday morning. Do you have any equipment you need to move in? Actually, Howard said, we have a new server rack sitting in a warehouse in Jersey. We have been waiting for a slot. Bring it in, I said. I walked out of the restaurant with a signed contract worth $1.5 million over 5 years. I had just sold Julian's bandwidth to his biggest rival. And the best part was that the fiber cables ran physically through the ceiling of the 37th floor to reach the 12th floor. Julian would be literally sitting under the internet speed he used to have, listening to it hum as it worked for someone else. The next morning, Friday, the legal machinery finally ground into gear. I was in my office at 8:09 a.m. I like the mornings. The building is waking up, and the systems are ramping up. I watched the graphs on my monitors. Tenant 1200 Quantum Systems bandwidth usage was spiking, with efficiency at 98%. Tenant 3700 Apex Solutions bandwidth usage was critical, packet loss at 65%, and the temperature in their server room was sitting at 84 degrees. At 8:15 a.m., the phone rang. It was not the internal line. It was an outside number, area code 212, New York Corporate Legal. This is Arthur Hale, I answered. Mr. Hale, this is Alan Sterling, General Counsel for Apex Solutions Parent Corporation. His voice was smooth, expensive, and currently very strained. I am looking at a very disturbing report from our satellite office in Texas. They claim the Dallas Tower building is experiencing a catastrophic failure of services. Mr. Sterling, I said pleasantly. I am familiar with the situation. However, I would correct your terminology. The building is functioning perfectly. The services to Suite 3700 have simply been aligned with their current contractual status. Contractual status? Sterling paused. I could hear him shuffling papers. I have a lease agreement here that runs through 2028. You have a base lease for the physical square footage, I corrected. Please refer to Addendum C, subsection 4, regarding technological amenities. It states clearly that high-speed fiber, enhanced cooling, and security integration are month-to-month services provided by the infrastructure overseer, subject to annual renewal. The on-site representative, Mr. Julian Thorne, terminated the provider of those services yesterday. Verbally and publicly, he dismissed the renewal negotiation and ordered me off the premises. There was a silence. A long, heavy silence. He fired you? Sterling asked. The smooth veneer was cracking. He did, I said. As per the harassment clause in my vendor agreement, I complied immediately. Furthermore, Mr. Sterling, you should know that the control software running the chilled water loop and the smart routing algorithms on that fiber is copyrighted and patented by my firm, Hale Infrastructure Holdings. Without a signed service agreement or active license, any attempt to run or bypass those systems is a direct violation of federal copyright law, specifically 17 U.S.C. Section 106. Our legal counsel, Eleanor, has already prepared the cease and desist. If your technicians attempt to splice my fiber or override the cooling loop firmware, we will file for statutory damages of $150,000 per violation. Mr. Hale Sterling's voice dropped an octave. You and I both know Julian is excitable. He is the VP's nephew. But we cannot have these systems offline. We are bleeding data. We are missing deadlines. What do we need to do to fix this? Well, I said, leaning back in my chair, usually I would simply reopen the negotiation. But unfortunately, the infrastructure capacity that Apex Solutions released has already been acquired. Acquired? By whom? I cannot disclose other client details, Mr. Sterling, I said. But the bandwidth has been reallocated. The cooling load has been shifted. You sold our internet? Sterling sounded like he was choking. I sold the available internet, I said. I cannot sit on inventory, Alan. You know business. Okay, Sterling said. Okay, look. I am going to call Donald Thorne. I am going to call Julian. We need a meeting today. Name your time. I am fully booked today, I lied. I was planning to reorganize my filing cabinet. I can squeeze you in on Monday morning. 9 a.m. Monday? That is 3 days. The servers will melt by Monday. I suggest you tell them to power down non-essential systems, I said. Maybe turn off the lights, open a window. Oh wait, the windows do not open. Pity. Monday, Alan. And tell Julian to bring a pen. A working one. I hung up. Monday was going to be interesting. But first, they had to survive the weekend. A skyscraper is a living organism. If you stop feeding it, it starts to die. By Friday afternoon, the 37th floor was unlivable. The temperature had stabilized at a sweltering 86 degrees. The air was stale because the circulation fans, which relied on the same control logic as the cooling, defaulted to minimum turnover to save energy. It smelled of body odor, warm plastic, and desperation. Most of the staff had gone home. They claimed remote work, but without the virtual private network functioning, which was hosted on the overheated servers, they were effectively on a paid vacation. Only Julian and a skeleton crew remained, trying to salvage the servers. They had brought in portable fans from Walmart. It was pathetic. Little white plastic fans buzzing against a wall of industrial heat. I went home for the weekend. I gardened, I read a book. I slept soundly. Monday morning, 9:01 a.m. The system goes dark phase was triggered automatically. It was an automated expiration. You see, the electronic keycards used by the staff had a rolling encryption code that updated every 72 hours via the network. If the network did not update the keys stopped working. It was a security feature I had installed to prevent former employees from accessing the building. The update was scheduled for Sunday at midnight. Since the network was down, the update failed. I arrived at the lobby at 8:45 a.m. It was a scene of beautiful chaos. About 30 employees from Apex Solutions were standing at the turnstiles. They were swiping their badges. Beep beep, red light. Beep beep, red light. What is going on? One of the developers yelled at Gavin, the security chief. My badge is not working. System says expired. Gavin grunted, tapping his screen. Cannot let you up without a valid badge, folks. Julian was there. He looked terrible. He was wearing the same clothes as Friday, and he had not shaved. He saw me walk in. I was wearing a cream-colored suit, and I was holding a hot latte. I breezed past the turnstiles, tapped my MasterCard, beep green light, and walked through. You! Julian shouted, lunging over the velvet rope. Gavin stepped in front of him, his massive arms crossed. Back up, sir! Gavin warned. He is doing this! Julian screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. He locked us out. I stopped and turned. The lobby was crowded. People from other companies were watching. I did not lock you out, Julian, I said, my voice carrying clearly. Your security protocol requires a network handshake to validate credentials. You do not have a network, therefore you do not have credentials. Fix it, he screamed. Just fix it. I have a meeting at 9 a.m. I have a meeting at 9 a.m. too, I said, checking my watch. With the tenant representatives, are you the representative? Because from where I am standing, you look like a trespasser. I turned to the elevator. 4th floor, I said to the voice command. The door slid shut, cutting off the sight of Julian trying to explain to his own employees why they could not go to work. Upstairs, the 37th floor was dark, hot, and silent. The servers had finally engaged their thermal shutdown. The lights were off because the motion sensors had not received a keep-alive ping. It was a ghost town, and I was the one holding the manual. The conference room on the 4th floor is nothing like the glass box upstairs. It is windowless, soundproofed and lit by harsh fluorescent strips. It is an interrogation room disguised as a meeting space. At 9 a.m. sharp, the door opened. Harvey, the building manager, walked in first, looking relieved that I was taking the lead. Then came Alan Sterling, the lawyer, looking exhausted. Finally, the VP, Donald Thorne, Julian's uncle, walked in. He was a short man, bald, with eyes like flint. He wore a suit that cost more than my annual salary. Julian trailed in last, looking like a beaten dog. They sat down on one side of the table. I sat on the other. Alone, Mr. Hale. Donald Thorne started, his voice like gravel. Let us cut the crap. We are losing $50,000 an hour. My nephew made a mistake. He thought you were support staff. He was stressed. We apologize. He nudged Julian. Julian looked at the table. I am sorry, he mumbled. I should not have fired you. Can we just turn the internet back on now? I looked at Julian. Then I looked at Donald. Mr. Thorne, I said. Your nephew did not just mistake me. He publicly humiliated the person responsible for the structural integrity of your business. But that is personal. I can get over personal. The problem is strictly professional. I opened my folder. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is the renewal contract for the infrastructure, I said. Donald reached for it. Fine, we will sign it. Same terms? No, I said, pulling the paper back slightly. This is the voided contract. Excuse me? Alan Sterling asked. As of Friday evening, the bandwidth allocation previously reserved for Apex Solutions was released to the open market, I said. It has been purchased. Purchased? Donald's eyes widened. By whom? Quantum Systems? Yes, I said. Donald slammed his hand on the table. Quantum Systems, the guys across the street. You sold our fiber to our competitors. I sold my fiber, I corrected, to a paying client with a signed contract. You did not have a contract, Donald. You had a handshake and a renewal that your representative threw in my face. Undo it, Donald commanded. Cancel their deal. Give it back to us. We will pay double. I cannot, I said. It is a 5-year binding agreement. Penalties for breach are astronomical. Besides, they are already using it. Their traffic is live. So what are you saying? Julian piped up, his voice cracking. We just do not have internet? You have the base building internet, I said. DSL speeds. Good for email, bad for whatever it is you do. Visionary operations, I believe. We cannot run the platform on DSL, Julian shouted. Then I suggest you relocate, I said coldly, because this building can no longer support your needs. Donald Thorne stared at me. He looked at his nephew. He looked at the lawyer. He realized finally the magnitude of the screw-up. You are evicting us, Donald whispered. Without serving an eviction notice, you are starving us out. I am just the landlord, Donald, I said, standing up. I just provide the walls. What you do inside them is up to you. But if you want cooling, power, and data, you need a friend in infrastructure, and you do not have one anymore. I walked to the door. Oh, and Julian, I paused. The freight elevator is booked tomorrow. Quantum Systems is moving in their new server racks. You will have to wait until Wednesday to move your things out. I would suggest using the stairs. The move out was painful to watch, which is why I watched every second of it on the security monitors. On Wednesday, the Apex Solutions team began the strategic relocation. That is corporate speak for running away in shame, because I had blocked the freight elevator for emergency maintenance. A loose bolt I found very dangerous. They had to use the service elevator. It was small. They had to dismantle their server racks piece by piece. Julian was not there. Harvey told me over beers that Donald Thorne had reassigned his nephew. Julian was now the director of special projects at a satellite office in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I checked the specs for that office. It is a warehouse district. The internet there is copper wire. Good luck, Julian. Quantum Systems moved into the 37th floor 2 months later. Apex Solutions broke their lease, paying a massive penalty that went straight into the building owners' pockets. The owners gave me a nice bonus for aggressive yield management. Quantum Systems is a great tenant. They submit tickets properly. They say please and thank you. They bring donuts to the security guards. I was sitting in the 37th floor conference room again 6 months later. Howard Briggs, the Quantum CEO, was signing off on a request for additional power. You know, Howard said, looking out at the skyline. I still cannot believe they just left. Why would anyone walk away from a setup like this? I took a sip of my coffee. Poor management, I said. They did not understand the foundation. Well, Howard smiled. We are happy to be here. By the way, my nephew is starting an internship next week. He is a bit of a hot shot, thinks he knows everything about computers. I froze for a second. I told him, Howard continued, that the first person he introduces himself to is Arthur. I told him that if he ever snaps his fingers at you, I will throw him off the roof myself. I smiled, a real smile this time. He will be fine, Howard, as long as he knows where the power comes from. I walked back to my office, the bunker behind the elevators. I sat down and checked the monitors. Temperature 72 degrees, stable, bandwidth optimal, tenant satisfaction 100%. I opened my drawer and pulled out a fresh file folder. I printed a label, Quantum Systems Infrastructure Agreement. I filed it away, the building hummed around me. It was breathing, it was alive, and everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. My dignity was intact, my bonus was cleared, and somewhere in Tulsa, Julian was probably waiting for a PDF to load. We are all built on foundations. Places do not hand out justice memos, but somehow it always finds the right inbox. This story was proof that quiet moves beat loud egos every time. Thanks for listening. See you next time.